Now, about a week ago or so, I actually made a video talking about like the whole entire Richmond off-season so far and everything that we know is going on in Richmond's 2025 off-season. Again, you guys seem to really like it, and some of you even commented saying you liked the longer style format videos. Again, the video literally went for like a whole entire hour and was a ton of fun to make and a ton of fun to put together. It just, unfortunately, for some reason, like the last 20 minutes, my voice didn't match my face as I was talking, and it was just a massive mess there. But none of you guys really seem to care, and it seems just to be a rendering problem. But I'm back here today to, I guess, give you guys another video where I talk about a bunch of Richmond off-season news and stuff that's going on right now, looking forward to the future, looking at free agents, potential delistings if players don't pull their fingers out. All of the above will be going over in today's video. Again, a lot of the content here, some of it has been posted on the channel already, but there's a decent amount of you guys who haven't seen all of them, so this is your way to really catch up and get all the latest Richmond off-season news in one decently sized big video. But again, before we do get into all that and more, there's still a decent amount of you guys who watch these videos who are not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you could do me a massive favor and leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel for all those AFL content, Richmond content, all of that and more. And I guess without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So the AFL has been doing something really interesting over the last couple of weeks, and that has actually been them releasing what they think is going to be every team's best 22 in 2025. Now, it was kind of weird because they decided to go by, every 6 teams. So they did 3 posts in total, which, again, wouldn't be that weird if each post would be like a day after each other. But I swear to God, Richmond, who are on the 3rd post, I had to wait like an extra 3 weeks after their first post just to be able to make this video. Again, I don't know why the AFL did that, but they were pretty much just cock blocking me of a video idea for a couple weeks. And look, it doesn't really matter because we're here now. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to go over what I think AFL's best 23 is compared to what I did. Again, I don't know if that is actually fun. My term of use of fun is probably wrong. Like, look, there are some people out there who probably think, fun is comparing an AFL 23 with your own 23. And then there are other people who think fun is going to the strip club in Grand Theft Auto 5 or yelling at random kids on NBA 2K. Again, I'd like to think I sit somewhere in that sweet little middle. We'll start off with the AFL's one, and I'm not going to lie, the backline is very, very, very similar to mine. Again, I think the only player that they don't have in that is, for some reason, it looks like they have put Ben Miller on the bench, which I think is semi-controversial. They've got Tom Brown starting over him, so you can just kind of swap that around. But I'm assuming they'll start Ben Miller on the ground, but, it is what it is. Again, our midfield is literally the exact same, except you swap Tim Taranto for Jacob Hopper. But again, that's all kind of similar. The difference is the forward line. So the forward line is kind of crazy because the way I took my approach for my forward line is I went with who I think Richmond are going to pick for round 1 against Carlton. Again, I already have them debuting Smiley and now Lawler. I think that Richmond probably aren't going to debut 4 or more, especially in round 1. Again, there's a chance they debut 3. But I don't necessarily know if they will. Again, especially against Carlton in round 1. You're going against a team who has 100,000 of the loudest members who are genuinely known to not be some of the nicest fans out there. Again, over the last couple of years, they have literally threatened their own players to their faces by screaming at them over the boundary. They have thrown water bottles over umpires' heads. And I think we're listed as the loudest club in the AFL. And I don't know if this is probably complete bullshit, but apparently their fans swear the most. Again, I swear a lot, so I'm not going to judge them off that. I've definitely yelled my fair share of swear words at like Jason Castagna back in the day. And look, that was wrong of me because he ended up retiring and becoming a tattoo artist. I don't know what happened there. But anyway, I don't necessarily know if Richmond will debut the 4 players that this page thinks they will. But they've got Harry Armstrong in that forward line, which I'm a little bit on the edge with. Again, I think Harry Armstrong or Jonty Fall will play if Tom Lynch doesn't. If Tom Lynch for some reason doesn't pull up again, which everyone knows that's very likely. Again, that man literally breaks more than when my heart broke when Anakin Skywalker turned to the dark side for my 1800th time of watching Revenge of the Sith. It's very similar. He's a broken man with a broken body, Tom Lynch, and I guess that's what I was. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily too convinced on that. Their midfield's like the exact same as mine, the followers as well. But yeah, their bench is way different. I mean, they've got Steely Green playing. I do not have Steely Green playing in this team. I think he could play round 1, but I don't necessarily think he will. I've actually gone with Jacob Bauer. I think Bauer will play pretty early on. They don't have Jacob Bauer on this list, which is surprising to me because I think every Richmond fan, most of us at least, think that Jacob Bauer is going to play. So they went with a smaller option in Steely Green. And they've also got Jonty Fall on the bench. Now, again, on mine as well, I've got, Kazitsky playing. The reason I think they'll play Kazitsky most likely is because, again, they're not going to want to debut a bunch of key forwards, I think, straight away. At least I wouldn't think. But they could easily very well because at the point, realistically, both of our young draftees might be better than Kazitsky. It's just that Kazitsky could at least somewhat handle the pressure, I think, a little bit more than, one of those guys could. Because, again, yeah, being a key forward against a crowd like that, having to play on like Jacob Wiedering and co, is a very hard thing to do. But then there's also been rumours that Kazitsky's actually been training with the backs. So if he's training with the backs and he's no longer playing as a full forward, then yeah, he might not be a Richmond full forward. They might genuinely debut one here. So that's the argument for that, I think. Then they've of course got Jonty Fall debuting as well, which I just don't see Richmond debuting 4 players and two key forwards straight away, and then Ben Miller off the bench. So it's not that weird, but yeah, I've got Banks in my team. They actually didn't list a sub on here. I'm assuming it's going to be Trezise or Banks. My sub was McAuliffe, and yeah, they don't even have McAuliffe as a emergency, which is crazy. From all the reports that Kane McAuliffe has been absolutely beast moding it this off season, and the AFL don't even have him as like a even an emergency or on top of the emergency list is crazy. But look, as we know, with round 1, we truly don't know who is like shocking and turning major eyebrows in the off season. One of those guys, like a Steely Green, could very well play in round 1, especially if they are dominating and shocking to the point where they will get a call up. But yeah, I think Richmond, especially against Carlton in round 1, they'll probably go safe. I don't think they will put a really inexperienced team out there, because if we put the team out there that I think AFL have on there, we're probably going to get thumped by 150 points. Because if you think about it, Steely Green's played less than 5 games, I think. Bowers played less than 10, I think. Brown less than 20. Fall, Smiley, Lawler, and Armstrong literally are all debuting then in that team, etc., etc. There are a lot of players in there with less than 20 games of experience, probably like nearly 10. I just don't think Richmond are going to roll that way. I think Kazitsky, if he is playing up forward, will get the nod because he is experienced. I think they'll go with some more experience in there, like a Sam Banks as well. But, even he's not experienced, but his experience is definitely a lot more than what Steely Green has right now. I just think Richmond will take it a little bit easy. They will ease us off into round 1, and then in round 2, if they are thumped with that team, they're probably just going to be like, look, if we're getting thumped with that team, we got nothing to lose. Let's play all these guys anyway. But yeah, they're probably for the first round or 2 not going to want to get beaten by 100 to 150, because at the end of the day, that's bad TV. That is bad confidence for any young kid. It's just really not a good look and doesn't look good on the group. And yeah, I think you're going to want to ease these debutants in, and giving them some VFL time to start off with makes sense. But again, a guy like Josh Smiley and a guy like Sam Lawler, no, they are AFL ready and they should be in the AFL. Even though they could use some VFL time, I don't think they will learn anything in the VFL. They need AFL to learn. The other guys can still probably learn in the VFL. But Lawler and Smiley, they need some AFL football into them, and I'm excited to see hopefully both of them debuting in round 1. Look, I was definitely contemplating whether or not I should make this video, because I don't want to be the guy who looks like I'm just preying on people's downfalls. Like, that's not the truth at all. I'm just a man who wants to see my favorite AFL club improve as much as they can, to the point of hopefully winning a premiership in the near future. And of course, unfortunately, that means over the years, there's going to be a couple players who, lose their jobs. It's no hard feelings. Again, so a lot of the coaches are pretty direct and full on with players. I think Dan Butler revealed in an interview, he was told by Damien Hardwick that he was the last player on the list in 2016. If he didn't improve, he would be, working at Guzman and Gomez or something. And look, that was a pretty firm thing Dimmer said to Dan Butler, and he ended up becoming a premiership player. And again, a guy who was a part of a team that changed the AFL forever. So, a man who was a part of a team that changed the AFL forever was that close to cleaning the floors up at Hungry Jack's. So there's going to be situations like that, right? And Richmond, they had about, I think, 10 players get delisted and retire in 2024, and they brought in 8 new players. I think had another rookie or so go up and brought back Mate Kalina, who they delisted. So in 2025, it's going to be a situation where there's going to be players who get delisted and there's going to be players who retire. And it's my job today to kind of predict that. And look, I'm hoping that these predictions are wrong. That's just the flat out reality. I remember in 2017, before the season started, I think I predicted Butler and Castagna were going to be delisted, and look what happened to them. So we're here today just to talk about all this, who I think will be on the chopping block for Richmond, who are on the verge of potentially being delisted, and those players who may be retiring. I think 2025 is going to be a bit different. I don't think, the Tigers are going to have 10 players be retired and delisted. I think, considering they only have 2 picks so far, which will probably end up becoming 3 because I think they've got a father-son, I think we'll probably only see about 5 or 6 players go. At least that's my prediction. I definitely feel like, I spoke about this in another video, which you guys should go and check out, but Richmond are going to hit 2025 free agency, I believe, and go after a player or 2, because they're going to have to, because they're going to have so much salary cap, and they've got not many picks left. So they're going to have to go after a player or 2, and I think Takoning will be one of those guys I'll look at. Cadman will be one of those guys, etc., etc. But if my predictions are right, and they bring in about 3 draftees and 2, of course, free agents, that means there'll be about 5 players delisted and retired. So I'll go with the players I think are on the hot seat of maybe being delisted. We'll start off with the obvious one, and that's Thompson Dow. Again, he was very, very lucky to keep his spot on the team. I think he would have been told in the meeting what Dan Butler was told years ago, that you are the last player now on this team. He played some of the most games for the Tigers in 2024, but he probably only had 1 good game. Again, this is a guy who played legitimate full-time midfield and averaged 15 touches, 14 touches, and they weren't good touches. This is a guy who is very, very on the hot seat and was very lucky to be re-signed. He has to absolutely prove to not only himself, but the AFL, that he is better than a measly and crappy 14 to 15 touches a game that doesn't really do much. He can get the 15 touches a game next year, but they have to be 15 good touches a game. Again, Edwards sometimes would only average 15 to 16 touches, but they were the best 15 to 16 nearly in the league, right? Thompson Dow, he was supposed to be that guy, and he hasn't been that guy. So he, I think, will very much be on the verge. Again, Mate Kalina, I believe, will be going into his 5th season with the Tigers, and he's never played a game. I think he's only played 2 years of football. He's had 2 or 3 years just injured and not even playing VFL. Again, I think he's a Category B rookie, so whether he gets delisted or not, it doesn't matter. He's already been delisted in the last 2 years in a row, I believe, and just re-picked up. And then the other two guys, I've got Jacob Bauer on this list, even though I really like what Jacob Bauer did in the last 5 games. He now has to do that every game next year, and he has to solidify a spot in the team, or he will be getting delisted just because Richmond have so many key forwards now that they've drafted and whatnot. The thing is with Jacob Bauer, though, is I think he will do that, and I think he will have a good season next year, at least I hope, because I like him as a player. And Richmond had about only 2 good marks last season, and they were both by him in like the last couple games. I think he took like 2 speckies, so he clearly has a very good, ability to be a good mark and a good player. You just got to hit the scoreboard and kick some goals. But again, I think he'll be safe. He's probably the least likely out of these guys. And then the one I think, Caleb Smith, I think it will be his 3rd or 4th season next year. I think 3rd season. But again, he doesn't look that good. He is a really weird position player where he is a small defender. And small defenders have kind of gone extinct in today's game, especially if they can't run off the half-back line. Like, if you're a smaller defender, you have to be a really quick, solid runner off that back line, because there's no point of smaller lockdown defenders anymore in the AFL. There's really not many of them left who can't be a good half-back and be a good runner as well, because, again, a lot of players who are like 190 centimeters, like a Dylan Grimes was, have the ability to play taller and smaller now. So those players like Caleb Smith are no use. Again, Ryan Mansell was like that too. And Richmond knew that he was kind of useless, so they moved him to be a forward. They knew he had good pressure and a good defensive game style, so now he plays forward and actually kicked a goal a game. So maybe that's what's next for Caleb Smith. He did spend some time up forward in the limited amount of game time he had for the Tigers this year as well. So that may be his next step, because again, he's not a runner off half back. Now that Richmond don't have Rioli, there's not a whole lot of that going around at Richmond, so that may be something they look at next year too. But yeah, I don't know if Caleb Smith will be on this list much longer. So if I had to predict players who were going to be getting delisted, I would say Dow, Kalina, and Caleb Smith. So technically 2 players and a rookie. So if we're going by my 5-player prediction, you've already got 2 there and a rookie. I think Richmond will have a couple of retirees. I think Camden McIntosh will be a lock to retire this year. I was very happy the Tigers kept him on and gave him a 1-year deal, because you desperately need that leadership and still some veteran experience to help the 8 new draftees you have. And from what we see, McIntosh is a great bloke. He's a great leader. He's just not good enough to be an AFL player anymore. But a lot of words have said he's had a really good off-season and could actually play some games of footy next year. So I would be happy to see that. And I think he will be very important for the Tigers in the VFL, because they didn't really have a veteran experienced player play with any of the young kids in the VFL last season. So McIntosh could be that guy. And honestly, he could be playing one of the most important roles out of any player for the Tigers this year, because they really do need some experience to help those younger guys like in the VFL and throughout training. So that will be his job, but I think it will be his last year. I also think Prestia, it could be his last year. He's in his early 30s now, and his hamstrings are they're pretty bad. Like, there's no other way around that his hamstrings are more dead than KSI's music career right now.
From the screen to the ring to the pen to the...
Actually, I shouldn't say that. The Thick of It song became kind of an internet meme, and that's arguably the greatest song I've ever heard of all time. And the other guy I've got on here who I don't think will retire, because I think his experience is way too good for the Tigers, is Tom Lynch. I think Tom Lynch will have another year or 2 on top of this. But I have wrote his name down just in case he doesn't play like any footy games this year, because if he doesn't, that's 3 years in a row, and he might just retire just based off that. But considering the Tigers need still veteran leadership, and he will be about 32, 33, I think. Probably 32 this year and then 33 if he goes on next year. They should probably still add another guy. And again, they've got Armstrong, Sims, Gray, Fall, Fawcett, and Bauer all like 22 and under as key forwards. They need a veteran and a mentor to help those guys out. And who better than Tom Lynch, one of the best key forwards over the last 10 to 15 years. So I'm happy with that if he goes on for another year or two. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Those are the only players I want to mention now because there could be another player or two. Like if a guy like Sonsi or, Judson Clark doesn't do anything this year, then yeah, they could very well be delisted. But I don't want to talk about them just because I think they have showed somewhat of an upside compared to the other guys. And I'm very excited to see and hopeful that they can do something again next season. I think it is very safe to say that if you go and ask a lot of AFL fans out there who they've got finishing last in 2025, pretty much nearly everyone and their dad will say Richmond. Again, I'm a massive Richmond fan and I would genuinely be so surprised if we didn't finish last in 2025. It's not just only the fact that we lost our best players in Daniel Rioli, Shea Bolton, and of course, even Jack Graham was good once upon a time, and Liam Baker there as well. You also got to remember, Richmond brought in 8 new players through the 2024 AFL draft. Literally 8 new 18-year-olds coming into your team is pretty much like a quarter of your list, and you can't expect a bunch of 18-year-olds who are probably going to play a lot of games to be able to really help you much at all. Like, for God's sakes, when I was 18, I don't even think I knew what a girl was. So, again, we can't be really having too many high expectations on these guys at all. So, I think it's very obvious that Richmond are most likely going to have the number 1 pick in 2025, as well as another good pick coming from North Melbourne, who traded away their future first in 2024 to Richmond, which means that if they are finish third last, which a lot of people predict they will, that means Richmond could have picks 1 and 3. So they'll definitely be going back to the draft and hitting that kind of harder than what Chris Brown did to Rihanna 15 years ago. So it will be very interesting to see who they go for. But something else that a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about is the fact that next season, Richmond should probably have some of the most free salary cap money to spend out of nearly every team in AFL history. If you think about it, in 2024, Richmond had Dustin Martin retired, who was the highest paid player in the game on about 1.5. Shea Bolton get traded, who apparently Fremantle took on like his whole entire contract, which was worth 1.1 million. I believe he was the 7th highest paid player in the game. And in 2025, Richmond will have Tom Lynch expire, who is the highest paid player of 2025 in about 1.6 million, according to Herald Sun. That means over these 2 years, Richmond should have freed up a ton of salary cap space. And that's not even talk about other players like Dion Prestia, who also go out of contract at the end of next year. So this has got me thinking that, considering the AFL forces teams to use up all their salary cap by the end of the season, this really does make me think that not only are Richmond going to hit the draft, but I think they're going to go after free agency pretty heavy as well, and we'll definitely be looking at a pretty good player or two. Not only do I think Richmond will go after like at least one, but they're going to go after, I think, a couple players in 2025. And what a free agency off-season would it be if Richmond came away with the number 1 overall pick, the number 3 overall pick, and 2 really good free agents, which I think the Tigers have the capability of doing. Now, of course, there is a list of players who are available who are pretty good. You've got Brandon Starcevich from the Brisbane Lions, the star up-and-coming Carlton ruck, Tom De Koning, Fremantle midfielder, Andrew Brayshaw, again, North Melbourne's Luke Davies-Uniacke, are probably the 4 best available free agents. Again, there's a couple others here and there. Of course, Sam Draper from the Essendon Football Club, who a lot of reports are saying could very well look to make a move. And I mean, Marcus Bontempelli, who I'm probably wasting breath and time off my life. It'd be kind of pointless to talk about him going, because even though he was a massive Richmond fan as a kid, I think that kind of means absolutely nothing, and he will get paid a crap ton to re-sign with the Dogs. I mean, Tom Lynch was a massive Collingwood fan as a kid. And when Collingwood offered him a contract to join their team, he picked Richmond over them. So going for the team that you went for as a kid and looking at them as a free agent option, it really doesn't mean anything at all. So we won't even talk about Bont. It won't be in consideration. But there were two players that we mentioned who I think Richmond will first and foremost really, really target. And that does happen to be De Koning and, of course, Sam Draper. Again, I've got a couple other players in mind who I will talk about in a second. But I want to talk about De Koning real quick, because De Koning right now, if I know right, I think signed for about 750 to 800k for Carlton. And there were rumours that when he signed that 2-year deal, that he was going to be getting about 5-year contract offers worth 800k or so. And we now know that De Koning has really, really pushed that number up. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is his absolute breakout year and he does, assert himself as a top 3, top 4 ruckman in the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if next year there are teams who come up to him and say, look, we'll give you 900k over 5 years to come and join our team. And I just don't think Carlton are going to be able to match that. Again, as we know, Carlton are apparently the tightest team right now in the AFL salary. They really can't move anywhere at all. And again, there were rumours for a while they were interested in Houston, and then it was revealed like their salary was actually that tight. It was almost physically impossible to get Dan Houston in. Again, they tried some things. They moved on Matthew Kennedy, which that was a good decision, because not only was he on some money, but they needed to change their midfield dynamic up a little bit. So they moved on him. A couple players will go and be free agents next year, like I think a Lewis Young might be, and a couple other players. But even then, it's going to be very tough to, I think, sign De Koning to this deal when there are going to be other teams who are going to be offering him massive contracts. And if Carlton do, they're going to be freaking tighter than a... Jeez, I was about to make a very inappropriate joke, but you know what? I don't plan on being demonetized today. They will be extremely tight, is what I'm trying to say here. And I don't know. A part of me thinks it's probably like a 70% chance he does re-sign, but I think there's a 30% chance that a team like Richmond comes out over and is like, look, we've got this really good young team. We want to now start adding some depth to it as well. We want to give you a 5-year deal worth 800 and 900k a year. And then you can come on our team. You can be with these midfielders for the next, how many years of your career, and we can really make something work. And it's also I think that he would actually work well with Toby Nankervis as well. So whenever De Koning needs a break in the ruck, which we know that's been kind of one of his issues throughout his career, is he hasn't always been able to be 100% a ruckman, then I think he could go down and play some forward while Nank played in the ruck, which, again, could very well happen. The other guy is Draper. Now, I don't think Richmond will be the team that gets him, although I think Sam Draper is a massive chance to leave. Essendon, I do think that, considering they kind of had Goldstein over him towards the end of the year, and it doesn't seem like he's their long-term guy, I think another team will offer him a deal out there, and a team like Adelaide will come and they'll offer him a good deal, I think, as well. But yeah, I think Richmond will be in the market, but I don't think they will necessarily go after him to the full extent. I think De Koning will be their priority. But the other player I mentioned earlier that I think Richmond will be super, super keen on does happen to be Aaron Cadman. Now, Aaron Cadman is a really interesting player right now because he's going into his 3rd season with the GWS Giants, and his first season wasn't that good. His second season, he showed a lot of signs. But it's going to be starting to be the time now where he starts to break out as a player. The thing is, I actually don't know how keen GWS are going to be on fully keeping him, considering they've got Jesse Hogan, who has absolutely broken out, and I think will hopefully continue this for the next couple of years. They've got a couple other key forward players here and there that have come through. Cadman is also there. But I think if a big Victorian club offered Cadman a massive deal like Richmond, I think possibly will, I don't know if they will re-sign him. Again, I think Cadman, let's just say he goes out this year and he plays all 23 games and he kicks 35 to 40 goals, which he could very well do. And even if he only kicks 30 to 35, it's a second option that's pretty good. I think a team like Richmond will come pretty hard. Pause. And will offer him a massive deal. I also believe he's very, very close mates with Sam Lawler and Jonty Fall, especially Sam Lawler, who they all played at Greater Western Victoria together. And look, I know Richmond hit the draft really hard and brought in Armstrong, Fall, and Sims to play key forward for them over the next couple of years. But historically, only one or two of them will go on to be a good AFL player. And I think most likely Fall and, Armstrong should be, but it's very tough to know. And with Tom Lynch retiring most likely at the end of next year or whatever he's going to be doing, there is a massive opportunity right now for Richmond to potentially build a really good trio of key forwards in Cadman, Fall, and Armstrong. And Fall could obviously go and play as the backup ruckman if needed. And just imagine that, 5 big man rotation that the Tigers would have if they did get De Koning and Cadman. Again, this is a lot of NBA 2K, a lot of dreaming right here. But De Koning is your main ruckman, Nanker's your backup, with 3 key forwards, which most teams do roll with nowadays, in Fall, Cadman, and Armstrong. That would be absolutely insane to see. And realistically, I think all 3 of them could play together because they all kind of fill a different purpose. You've got Fall, who's that big, crash the pack, marking key forward. You've got Armstrong, the key forward, who can not only play close to home, but can move up the grounds, being compared to a Jeremy Cameron. And then you've got Cadman, the really good leading key forward as well. I think that could be something really good the Tigers could definitely look at. And then last but not least, I left this one for last because I think this one is by far the most likely not to be happening, is Zach Butters is actually a free agent in 2026. And it's been said that a lot of teams are really going to try and attract him in 2025. I don't really think Richmond will offer him a deal. I don't think he'll leave Port. I think Port will offer him a deal that will make him probably the highest paid player nearly in the game. He is legitimately that good. But God, he would really fit in well to that Richmond midfield. The age bracket there as well, and what the Tigers needing, and some speed and craftiness in that midfield too. He would really fit it, and I wouldn't be surprised if Richmond also offered him a contract that made him the highest paid player in the game. I just think Port Adelaide will do it. I think he likes it over at Port, and I mean, there's not really much of a point of him leaving. He's their vice captain too, so I don't think that's really going to happen. But I think Cadman is honestly a big chance to leave GWS, and I think Richmond will be the number 1 suitor. And I think De Koning is a slight chance to leave Carlton, and I think Richmond will probably be the number 1 suitor. So I do like the Tigers potentially targeting those players. What a free agency and off-season it would be if the Tigers managed to bring in pick 1, 3, De Koning and Cadman. That would be legitimately pretty crazy. Drafting the 2 best midfielders probably, getting the best ruckman in the free agency and the best key forward in there. Really having that spine, it would just be so goddamn insane. And yeah, it's a lot of NBA 2K. Probably only 10% of what I've talked about in this video will happen, but it's cool to fantasize and talk about before the season really does get started. So for those of you who didn't see, I recently just made my first ever SuperCoach video on the channel, where I basically showed you guys some stuff about the new SuperCoach 2025 season, while also giving you guys a preview of my first draft of my SuperCoach team that is going to change 188 different times before the season, of course, does start again. It was kind of just my overall thoughts and impressions on the new 2025 SuperCoach. So go check that out if you haven't already. But in today's one, I'm going to be reacting to the Richmond team. And again, Richmond have a lot of stuff going on right now. They're going to be a team that everyone and their dad is going to have players in, because look, they've got all the cheap players. They've got all the players who are going to debut, make a bunch of money, be a legitimate cash cow. I mean, they've got all of the above. So I thought it'd be fun, as a massive Richmond fan, to go over my thoughts and opinions on the prices and who I think I'll be picking in my team. Yeah, one of the first things I definitely wanted to do on SuperCoach 2025 is go on filters over here, go on teams. I want to go on Richmond, and I want to see who the players are, and holy crap, Nick Floston is our most expensive player on 492,000. That can't be right. Please, no. Oh, I think that's just Backman. Thank God. I nearly just had a seizure reading that because, yeah. I think it got worse when I read that Ben Miller was the third most expensive, and I was like, oh my God. If Ben Miller's the third most expensive all up, we're in a bit of trouble here. But yeah, some cheap options for the Tigers. Gibkiss is only 153,000. That is crazy behavior. Campbell Gray's a defender forward. Luke Trainer's on here. Again, I think Josh Gibkiss will be a guy that we will all want to get and pray that he just doesn't die for the third year in a row. In the midfielders though, Timmy T is still 509k. God, Thompson Dow is our fourth most expensive midfielder. Oh my God, bro. So we've got Thompson Dow on here. I don't think anyone will be getting him. Shugo Roll Smith. Jesus, not a lot of value here. Even Kane McAuliffe, who I was thinking of maybe being like, look, he could be a low-key good pick here. Even he's 244,000 against Sammy Lawler. I think he'll obviously play round one. And considering Richmond will bad, he'll probably play every single week, obviously. So you'd think he would be a lock. And then, I mean, the obvious lock is Josh Smiley. I mean, you would have to be medically not all there to not put Josh Smiley in your super coach, because again, this guy's going to be an absolute beast. I even made a separate video talking about why I think he will be nearly the rising star favorite. So yeah, you're clinically unwell if you don't have him in your team. But again, speaking of clinically unwell, or people who I guess just don't know, or you know, actually have a life and work a full-time job to not be able to research this, but Taj Houghton, a lot of people are getting in their super coach, and I will say to not do that because he will be out for the first half of the year with an ACL injury, and when he comes back, they'll probably play him a lot of VFL and all of that type of stuff, and then, I mean, yeah, he might debut in the last couple rounds, I'm not sure. He definitely won't come back in the AFL straight away, and they'll try and cruise him into it. So yeah, I don't think you're going to get any of these Richmond players, but you will get Smiley and Lawler, I'm assuming, or at least I personally will. Again, in the ruck, they've got Toby Nankervis, who was actually an interesting choice. A lot of people decided to get in last season. Again, nothing else too interesting here besides Thomas Sims, who could be a guy who I think a lot of people will use as a very cheap ruckman. You know, if they're not looking to make some cash and they're looking to do the loophole glitch with the captain, again, they'll probably bring in Thomas Sims. He's a forward ruck. Unclear if he'll play early on, but again, a lot of people will be switching him up forward if needed as well, doing the loophole with him. So I think he'll be an option that people bring in. And then the forwards, Noah Bolter is listed as a forward on here. $334,000. Morris Rioli Jr., oh my God, is our third most expensive forward. That is criminal. And he's not even 300k. Again, I don't think I'll be bringing in any players here at all. Jacob Bauer, 216. He's an interesting one because he might play early on. Tommy Lynch, again, 183. I mean, can you go past that? Can you go past Tom Lynch at 183,000? I mean, I don't care that he will probably get injured a couple times. Again, touch wood, he doesn't get injured. But can you go with Tom Lynch knowing that there's that massive chance, and that even early on, if he plays the first 2 or 3 games, they might rest him or whatever it is? I just don't know. Again, Steely Green, 182k, that's value considering a lot of people say he will play very early on. Jonty Fall, again, 145k. Another guy a lot of people will say will play very early on. And then Harry Armstrong, 113k only for Harry Armstrong. That is crazy considering a lot of people have him as a round 1 lock. So if you can get a guy who is a round 1 lock who will play good minutes straight away at 113, yeah, you're going to take that again. The issue is he's a key forward. So they tend to get dropped pretty easy. And look, Richmond have a bunch of key forward options now. Armstrong, Liam Fawcett, Campbell Gray, Jonty Fall, Tom Lynch obviously will get a game every week. Jacob Bauer's still there. Kazitsky, if they want to move him up forward again. Again, there's rumours he'll be playing down back this year. So many options there, man. Look, the defenders, we didn't really go over that much. But Gibcus, I want to say he's a lock. I want to bring in Josh Gibcus. And Richmond don't really have too many defender options here. They've got all the forward options in the world. They have half the roster nearly listed as a forward. So if you're looking to get some forwards, might be wise to bring in some Richmond players. And then the flex, that's everyone. So this is all the prices, I suppose. This is all of them. Nank and Tim are the only players above 500. Jesus Christ. And there's only 6 players above 400. Oh my god, bro. That is a tough look. And yeah, there's a lot going on here. There will be a lot of players I think people will be bringing in. I think I will probably have at least 4 to 5 Richmond players by round 1, which is exciting because as a Richmond fan, I suppose I never get to bring in players from the SuperCoach. So I'm very excited to see that these Tiger players finally get a crack in my team. And yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on here. I think the ones to get, obviously, if I were to say, is not going to be Thompson Dow. I can tell you that right now. But the ones I would look into, I mean, Jacob Blight's still a bit expensive, so is McAuliffe. I look at these guys. I think Jacob Bauer is an interesting one. He might play a lot. Sam Law is probably a lock. Josh Smiley and Steely Green are probably locks, especially if Green plays. Tom Lynch is, a very interesting one. So is Gibcus. Fall is interesting. Fawcett even. Armstrong and Sims. All of those guys will be playing very early on and we'll get a lot of early action, I would assume. Luke Traynor even, he could be a guy who plays early on if he impresses in the VFL as well. So what do you guys think about Richmond in 2025 and SuperCoach in 2025? Again, there's definitely a lot going on, as I said earlier. Half of Richmond's list is probably going to be in like everyone's team because there's going to be so many young players who will hopefully continue to generate cash for them and, continue just to make everyone's team much better. So if you guys, would be so kind to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, but importantly as well, comment your thoughts and opinions down below of what do you guys think? Who are you going to add into your team? Who's some smokies you like? Some players you think are those mid-range money for Richmond that could go up, like a Kane McAuliffe at 244. Again, all of the above. Definitely let me know all of your thoughts and opinions on this all down below. Subscribe to my gaming channels and my IRL/vlog channels. Links for them will be in the description down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.